think they're still trying to start it back up, but that what you're seeing, Jack, is this is what's underneath these skirmishes where you're now getting almost every day some shooting going back and forth between the Iranians and the American Navy, and it's over. You coerce Iran to stand down, Iran voluntarily stands down, or you take the coastal region and prevent Iran from attacking those ships. There's not a third way. So Trump lost the bet.
If America loses that bet under pretty much every scenario, except minority few, like, why did Trump take this bet at all?
Well, notice this is now the third time he's taken a bet. So on February 28th, he started what he said was supposed to be just a 2 or 3 day air campaign. And that's going to, in his mind, cause the current regime to completely collapse. And it's then going to be replaced by some pro-democracy movement, which he's opening the gateway for, is the way that he's describing it. Well, that failed. It failed, Jack, because what happened is the bombs hit their targets. The leaders were killed that were targeted, but instead of the regime collapsing, the politics of the regime just brought the regime even closer together and made it even more aggressive. What we call the regime in Iran, you can think of it as a 3-part regime. You can think of it as the original supreme leader, who we then killed, but the original leader was a cleric, a religious man, and he was at the top. But then he was over the military, that's the Islamic Revolutionary Guards, and then he was also over the political leaders, like, say, the parliament or the president or the foreign minister. So that's a 3-part regime. And what happened when we killed the supreme leader, the new supreme leader was elevated essentially from the Revolutionary Guards. He was the son of the supreme leader, but he was somebody who stood toe-to-toe in battle on the front lines with the Revolutionary Guards in the 1980s in the war between Iran and Iraq. And frontline fighter. This is not somebody who's off in a nightclub while everybody else is doing the fighting. This is a guy who was right there with the Revolutionary Guards. So he was not actually that much of a cleric. He doesn't have much of a religious standing here the way his father did. So what happened is, instead of the softies, so to speak, coming in to power, what happened is you took the old supreme leader off and you elevated the Revolutionary Guard.
We also killed 20 other people who could have filled the position, right?
Who were the softies.
Right.
Right. So
and was
and
that
it was
the
actually,
US?
no, it was actually Israel. So this is the second time. So Israel is the one who started the bombing on the morning of February 28 when it started. And they told us what they were going to do. They told Trump who they were going to kill. And Trump himself has told us that they killed the supreme leader, and the leader was meeting with these 20 people. That's how they knew the timing of why they wanted to strike then. They knew the meeting was going to occur at a certain time, and they wanted to get all 20.
Why do you think the new supreme leader of Iran is more dangerous than the previous one?
Oh, for what I'm saying, he's coming from the military, essentially. He's not coming from the clerical route, even though he's the son of a cleric and has some lower status as a cleric. He's a frontline revolutionary fighter who's put his life on the line. And then in addition to that, the bombs kill his father, the bombs kill his wife, the bomb kill some of his children here. So the bombs hurt him. He was wounded in the bombing as well. So he survived, obviously. But you have a situation where this new supreme leader just has layer after layer of reasons to want to, first of all, not make concessions and want payback for what has happened. So the idea that this was going to weaken the regime, it just hasn't happened. What you've got was a stronger, more aggressive single leader. But even broader than that, Jack, when you study these cases of bombing against regimes, which I've done for decades, in detail, what you see is that the politics never works out the way the bombing state thinks it's going to work out. Bombing state has always got some story they tell themselves, and this is going on since, for 100 years, even with dumb bombs. Some story they tell themselves about how, well, you're going to attack this regime, and when you attack the regime, it's going to soften it, and the new leaders will become more pliable and do what you want them to do. This just never works out that way, because what happens inside of the group, this collectivity here, is there's once you kill the current leader, there's a group around, and they're vying for authority. They're vying to be the leader. If they don't want to be the leader, they have an easy thing. They can just go run away. But the group around here, they want to be the next leader. Well, in order to be the next leader, you're never going to find this group rally around somebody who says, "Oh, hey, guess what? I got a great idea. Let's go and surrender and turn our whole futures over to the guy who just killed our previous boss." This just doesn't happen. Now, if somebody were to make that suggestion, there's every reason to expect they'll get a bullet in the back of the head at the meeting. This is not an environment where they're looking for someone to surrender and carry the surrender papers. They're having meetings among themselves to figure out who's got the plan to fight back. And that's why the new leaders who come in are either just as bad, or they're even more aggressive when you do go through these.
So you're saying when a country gets attacked, a more radicalized, aggressive leader goes into place
for political reasons. It's a set of political dynamics, not personality-driven dynamics. It's even if you thought they were soft ahead of time, the people who come to the fore, even among the most dovish here, are going to be much more hardline, and it's for the political reason I'm saying.
So what's the opposite of that? Like, what would a country or cabinet, people in power, vie for if, say, a leader launched an attack on another country? Like, would it be the opposite effect? Like,
well, wait, say it one more time, Jack, so I make sure I understand.
So you're saying that if a country gets attacked, a more radicalized leader appears.
That's right.
But what happens to a country when there's an election coming up and that previous leader?
That's when you tend to see things more fractured. When you have like the normal churning of politics in a country without the outside power doing the attacking, there are gaps between the society and the regime. And there clearly was true in Iran. Probably something like 20% of the population of Iran worked for the government, literally got a paycheck from the government. They were the supporters. Maybe there's a few more supporters of the government who aren't getting a paycheck, but you could reasonably imagine before the bombs falling that 80% of the public just didn't like their government. Some maybe to the point of even willing to risk dying to oppose it, but that the government only had minority support. What we did when we intervene and we have the foreign U.S. Juggernaut. We're an 800-pound gorilla. We're a juggernaut coming in here, and we're not just putting our thumb on a scale. We're literally saying we're going to kill this leader, and we're choosing the next one. That we choose who the next leader is. Well, once you make it clear that it's Washington who's running the country now, that tends to unify whatever the gap was between society and the regime, tends to condense. It tends to close, because even the most pro and opposition movements to the government don't want to become puppets for America. That's traitor. That's being treasonous. That's being anti-Iranian. So you may not. Another way to put it, Jack, is a lot of Democrats right now do not like President Trump and haven't liked him since he came down the escalator, 2015. But that said, if Iran were to assassinate President Trump, how many Democrats are going to call on the Iranian assassins to come to Times Square and party with them? None. They're not going to do that. In fact, they're going to probably be some of the leaders of we need revenge and fight back here if Trump is assassinated. And so this is the same. This is the dynamic that's true in politics in all modern nation states. It's not that there are some countries more vulnerable to this than others. It's literally the bombs change the politics in the country. And that's the mistake that's made by governments over and over. So governments read these pre-war trends. And as I'm saying, it's quite reasonable to say 80% of the public was opposed to the Iranian regime, pre-war trend. And they say, no problem. I'm just going to knock off that regime. That 80% will love me for it. They'll do our bidding. Never happens that way. Because once you're the foreign government doing the bombing, you change the politics. That pre-war trend doesn't matter anymore. It's gone. It's not that you were misreading the pre-war trend. It's you changed the game. It was a game changer, and it's a self-defeating strategy. It's literally a contradictory strategy, which is why for over 100 years, we have zero cases of success. It has always backfired, and it's only a matter of the degree of backfiring, but it's never worked out positively.